Hello, I'm Siobhan McCarthy, and this presentation is all about the principles of effective assessment and feedback. Nobody likes assessment. As lecturers, we don't like writing exams or coming up with ways to test students, and students certainly don't like it. So why do we do it at all? We do it because we have to measure learning in some way. But if we think about it, is it all about the end product? What about encouraging current and future student learning, facilitating self-regulation? And ideally what we want is for an assessment to have a positive impact on learning. I'm going to present to you 10 principles of assessment and feedback. All of these are adapted from the literature. Now you might look at these principles and think, yeah, I do all this already, then great. But if you don't worry. Not every assessment will always have all of these principles covered. But this might get you thinking about whether your formative and summative assessments have these incorporated. Both assessment and feedback are integrated and fully aligned with each other and the module objectives. So, for example, when you're writing exam questions, are they focused on learning objectives and what students should know by the end of the module, or do you want students to remember the most obscure fact from one of your lectures to prove they were listening? There's probably a lot of superfluous information that we give in our lectures. What is the essence of the module though? What's the important stuff? That's what we need to examine. Assessment and feedback is valid, appropriate and fair. It should be relevant to the real world. Practicals are an excellent hands-on method of learning, but we also need to be sure that we are assessing the elements of the practical that students will use again in their careers. Assessment and feedback needs to be appropriate to learning and understanding and cognizant of the student cohort. We probably don't expect students to include references and citations in a first-year practical report, but it would be expected in an award year. And of course, everything needs to be fair and transparent. Clarify what good performance is. Students would frequently ask me, what am I looking for in a practical report? And I would say, well, it's a standard template for any scientific report: introduction, method, results and discussion. Students would then say, well, this lecturer says we can write as per lab manual for methods, and another lecturer says we have to write it all out. So yes, there is a standard template for reports, but I needed to clarify what I expected of students. Providing criteria for assessment is important. Provision of exemplars can also be really helpful. Encourage time and effort on challenging learning tasks. Assessments that encourage regular ongoing study both in and out of the class promote deep learning. Regular feedback is important along with this. High feedback quantity, such as weekly feedback from practicals, can be a very positive thing. Feedback is performance and task oriented and is comprehensive. Focus on what the student has done, not on who they are, and whether they always hand up perceived good work or poor work. Feedback should always be clear and explicit. Assessment informs learning. Remember, sometimes the process is more important than the end product. You might have a student that has excellent lab skills but produces a report that doesn't reflect this, or vice versa. So think about what's important and what you really want students to learn, and is this reflected in your grading? Help students to reflect on learning and be self-regulated, a big one, and difficult to achieve and measure. Our aim is to prepare students for lifelong learning, so try and provide opportunities for them to reflect on assessment and feedback. Give them the time and space to do this. You could provide students with a self-assessment checklist. For example, for practicals, they could tick whether they have completed X, Y or Z and how well they've done it. Peer feedback can also help students compare their own work to another student and allow for self-correction. Students are more likely to have buy-in if they're part of the process, and it helps open up a dialogue around assessment and feedback. Why not try giving students a choice in assessment? Does a presentation have to be in a PowerPoint form, or will a poster convey the same message? Encourage peer assessment and questioning among students and get them involved in the decision making when it comes to grading criteria. Encourage positive motivational beliefs and self-esteem. Good performance needs to be attainable. Don't set students up to underperform. Again, clarifying what good performance is important. Feedback can activate students to be motivated to learn, and successes promote positive self-belief. Provide information to the lecturer that can help shape teaching. This closes the gap between what the student expects and what the lecturer expects. It will help you to improve your teaching over time. So they are the 10 principles. As I said, all of your assessments may not incorporate every single principle, but it's worth trying to implement them in your assessment designs. Dialogue with students and colleagues can be so informative, so hopefully these principles will help motivate you to start thinking and talking about assessment and feedback.
Created using Powtoon.